So there was a doubleheader yesterday. Whichever team between the Mets and the Braves won game one of the doubleheader, they would clinch a playoff spot. And then if the other team would win the second game, they would clinch a playoff spot and keep the Diamondbacks out of the playoffs. Well, that's exactly what happened. The Mets, in an all-time classic regular season game, they win game one, back and forth affair. You see those win probability lines on the graph?
Yep.
And it looks like probably what my EKG looked like during the Pitt, West Virginia backyard brawl game this year. They win the game in comeback dramatic fashion, so they make the playoffs. Braves win game two. They make the playoffs. The Diamondbacks sitting at home. Couple things here, and it all relates to the Pirates, but Andrew Filipponi, a Mets fan, wearing his Mets sweatshirt yesterday, when the Mets won game one, clinched a playoff berth, he started shaking his arms up in the air like grandma hit bingo.
Yeah, like lunch lady arms.
Yeah. And it's the way the sweatshirt looks, and it's those sweatshirts flap, and it looked like he had the bingo arms going.
I was howling. I was like, what is that celebration?
I've watched that way too many times. Pony just going, yeah.
He does it twice. He does like a, and he goes again. And Muller's just like looking at him like, goodness gracious.
So congratulations to Pony. His Mets are going to the playoffs.
And Finley.
And Greg Finley.
Yes.
Who works at the AM, whose Mets are going to the playoffs, and he sweats through every single one of those Mets games, does Finley. And I don't know how much Pony gets to watch, but of course you're going to root for the team you grew up rooting for. Anytime something good happens to a Major League Baseball team, it hurts me. It hurts me. Anytime I see fans celebrating their baseball team, part of me dies inside. Dorin, seriously, it's this weird feeling. I'm watching that game yesterday, and it was super entertaining and incredibly dramatic, and I'm going to watch the playoffs. I always do. Part of me was real sad. The Pirates have the longest playoff drought in the National League at 10 consecutive years. They haven't made it since 2015. They really haven't been close since 2015. And they've had a winning season in there. You had that month and a half where Josh Bell was hitting the ball like Willie Stargell. You had Skeens this year. You had the 20-8 start last year. But these are fleeting moments, few and far between. When the Tigers made the playoffs the other day, that hurt me. The Royals were an 100-loss team last year. They're taking on the Orioles. The Orioles, who have been a perennial doormat like the Pirates, though they've had some success. That hurts me. And here the Pirates are. Last season at 76 wins. You spend $35 million. That's it during the offseason. You come out this year, 76 wins. What's your solution? Now, after you've stagnated, let's fire the hitting coach. Let's fire the bullpen coach. To me, it's not enough, man. And I look at the Pirates in the statistics of what they were able to do hitting the baseball. Fourth most strikeouts in all of Major League Baseball. Second most strikeouts in the National League. You scroll all the way down to 24th for runs scored. It's just not good enough. When you think about batting average, you don't think Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates, 23rd in the league. Batting average, one more number while we're on it. Slugging percentage, 27th in Major League Baseball. So you strike out a ton. If you hit home runs and you slug the ball, that's fine. They don't. They don't put the ball in play. And it can't just be the hitting coach. He needed to go. He had the same problems in Milwaukee. Too many caught looking strike threes. But if Derek Shelton's the manager next year, I don't know why we would expect the team to hit more home runs. I don't know why we would expect young players to grow and develop. And that, to me, is the biggest issue. Henry Davis was supposed to be a guy, not a guy. Jack Sawinski had 26 homers last year. He was almost an all-star. I thought he could hit 30 this year. He spent the entire season in the minors. That can't just be all... I spilled water everywhere. That can't just all be on Andy Haynes.
It's not. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, how can you look yourself in the mirror and think that this is going to be any better next year?
Right.
If the actual regime, which is the manager, is still in place. Like, it's going to be the same thing. And then you're wasting years of a just a ridiculous talent of Paul Skeens and a ridiculous talent of Jared Jones and a guy that's a staple and could be a staple between those guys or at the back end of those guys and Mitch Keller. The regression of young players, as he just said, Henry Davis, the regression of Jack Sawinski, the regression of, really everybody. And Brian Hayes. I don't know how you can think that it's going to be any better. You thought it was going to be better this year, and it wasn't.
That's right.
And how can you think it's going to be better next year?
I'm with you. And we thought that they might have this core of position players that you can build around. You've got, at this point, I think 2 guys you can count on. I think O'Neal Cruz had a good season. He played 9 games last year. He goes 20-20. That's a good season. I'm expecting him to get better.
He got moved, though.
And he got moved to center field.
They moved his position.
Couldn't figure it out at shortstop. Was throwing the ball away.
Yeah, he did
not
good at the
squeezing
plate.
it.
Yeah.
You're right. You went into the season
guy.
thinking you got your shortstop of the future, and now you find out he's your center fielder of the future. You're right about that. Now you're talking about maybe moving Brian Reynolds to first base. So we'll see how that all goes. I thought Sawinski would be a guy who could be a mainstay here. Not like the cornerstone of your franchise, but if he's hitting 5th or 6th in your lineup, 26 homers last year, if he could do something similar this year, that's a big deal. Didn't happen. They still don't have a first baseman. You point that, I would think, to Ben Cherington, unable to figure that out. In 2019, Ben Cherington took over. They had Starling Marte. They had Brian Reynolds. They had 26-year-old Josh Bell, who hit 37 homers the year before. That's 3 players to build around. Now we're 5 years removed from that. And you've got Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz. They had 3 guys. You've got 2. Nobody believes in Key Brian Hayes.
Mm-mm.
You know, most of that, if not all of that, is injury. Maybe it's not. I mean, they haven't been able to figure it out. That's the thing. I don't really care why. Haven't been able to figure him out. That guy can't hit. Can't hit. Jared Triolo last season hits 300. This year he's one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball. When Ben Cherington took over, you had 3 legitimate players that you figured you could build around, or you could use as trade chips to bring in talent.